All right. No intro music today. Welcome to Conspiracy Corner Podcast. Sammy is asleep, so I'm not going to blast some intro music, and her mom's asleep too. Um, she has a doctor's appointment tomorrow. I'm just sitting here drinking blood. Just got off work. Pretty good night. Pretty chill. I got a lot done. Was in cooler most of the night. Stocking cooler. Then jumped over to register. Finished off the chores for the night. Um, yeah, life is good. Played some Harry Potter when I got home. Um, I do plan on doing a review. I'm playing Prisoner of Azkaban. And I'm playing Chamber of Secrets for Game Boy Color. As you guys know, I've been doing a lot of Game Boy games. I've been going through the whole library from Game Boy to Game Boy Advanced and doing reviews on them. Because I do have a life outside of conspiracy. Speak of the devil, tomorrow I have an interview with a Jason Donahue at noon. He's coming over. We're gonna do an interview together, so that'll be fucking cool. It's gonna be a Blue Pill podcast episode. If you guys don't know, I have two different podcasts. I have Conspiracy Corner, which is all conspiracy theories, which is my main one. And then I have Blue Pill Podcast because, yes, I'm a conspiracy theorist, but I am a normal guy at the end of the day. My whole life does not revolve around conspiracies. I like to talk about normal life and fun shit like that. So look forward to that. We're going to do an interview tomorrow. Well, today, technically, because it's 1:20. But yeah, let's get on with the show. That's about it for updates, really. Oh, I do have a Buy Me a Coffee account set up. If you want to donate $1, that would be helpful to the channel. It helps pay for pens, papers, notebooks, flash drives, shit to keep the channel going. So, I know there's a lot going on with the Epstein shit. I will get back into the Epstein shit. Last episode was about Burning Man. The one before that was an interview. Trust me, I'm keeping up with it. I'm keeping notes on it and shit. I might just have to report on it a little bit late, but I won't shut up about Epstein. But I wanted to talk about this. So this was a smaller conspiracy story that I heard through the grapevine of our community. I've always mentioned in passing Albert Pike. I've never, surprisingly, I mean, we're on episode 513, I believe. I've mentioned Albert Pike in passing, but I've never actually done a deep dive or a full episode on Albert Pike. And it would be a timeless episode, an evergreen episode is what they call it. I know, the Hillary Clinton connection. Don't get me started. They ruin everything. But words are spells, and let's conquer our words. Let's take back control of our words. Anyways, Albert Pike. I've never done a deep dive on Albert Pike. It's gonna kind of be a deep dive if I have time on it. But this I found interesting. So Trump recently signed a bill or did something to where they replaced an Albert Pike statue that was damaged by BLM, if I remember correctly. So, first of all, I never supported BLM. At very first, when it first came out, by the way, it got hijacked. Sam Tripoli talks about it all the time. Let's just get to the point. BLM was never Black Lives Matter. It was originally called Black Lives Matter 2. And in those two lesbian idiots, probably CIA, took it over and took off the TOO the two. Because all they were saying was, hey, all lives matter, is what they were saying originally, the movement. But Black Lives Matter too. And trust me, I mean, the original movement was like, hey, maybe we should stop killing minorities and, which, I mean, look, man, I'm a classic liberal. I'm not like super progressive or anything, but you do have to say, man, like, black people have gotten the shitty hand throughout American history. I mean, with slavery, with segregation, it is what it is, you know. And the two chicks that took it over, you can even look in their statement. They're Marxist, man. Every and I've said this before, man. Like every movement that means something and is actually positive ends up getting hijacked. So like the hippie movement got hijacked with Jim Morrison and the Tavistock Institute. Jim Morrison's father was involved with Gulf of Tonkin, which is like the first false flag of America. If I remember correctly, Charles Manson was a CIA asset, and that was to demonize the hippie movement, along with like Jim Morrison demonized the hippie movement, punk rock movement. There's all sorts of CIA and MI6 connections with the sex shop that the Sex Pistols started in. The whole thing is fucking sketchy. Every single movement gets hijacked. It sadly does. So, this isn't a political thing. My personal opinion is that I believe anyone should be allowed to wave any flag they want. If you want to wave a rebel flag outside your house, or hell, even a Nazi flag or a Satanist flag, I believe you have every right to do it. I'm pretty much libertarian, but I have every right to call you a fucking moron and flip you off as I drive by. But my thing is I don't think the Ten Commandments should be at government buildings. I don't think Baphomet should be at government buildings. I don't think a rebel flag should be at government buildings. I don't think a Nazi flag should be at government buildings. Or an Israeli flag. I think there should be nothing there but an American flag. That shit belongs in museums. I don't understand why people don't understand that type of shit belongs in museums. It doesn't. Just think about it this way, dude. If I was black, and I was a black father, driving around with my little black daughter, and there's a statue of Robert E. Lee, or a rebel flag, and she's 3 or 4 years old going, what's that flag mean? Well, honey, imagine how awkward that would be. That just sucks. And the thing is like, that's on government buildings. If it was on someone's house, I would just say, that's an idiot, you know, and I would just keep driving. But on a government building, it's like, why is that there? Why is that there? Well, it's to preserve history. That's what museums are for. You can go to a museum and pay money and go check it out. I don't understand it. I'm all for preserving history. I just don't think it should be flying around. You don't go to Germany and there's Nazi flags still up. Like, unless you go to a museum, you know? That's my opinion. It is what it is. But I'm not so concerned about Albert Pike and the Confederacy. They want us to focus on the stupid shit. Not that the Civil War was stupid, but Albert Pike goes way deeper. He was a 33rd degree Freemason, a Luciferian, and we're going to get into that. So the Confederate statue toppled during Black Lives Matter protest will be reinstalled. The National Park... Oh, he wrote Morals and Dogma. The National Park Service is planning to restore and reinstall a statue of Albert Pike, a Confederate general and Freemason leader. Dun dun dun, 33rd degree. I think he was Grand Master at one point. That was toppled during Black Lives Matter protest in June 2020. Juneteenth! The summer of love. Or was that I think it was 2020 was the summer of love. The restoration aligns with federal responsibilities under historic preservation law, as well as recent executive orders to beautify the nation's capital. Beautify. Wow. I don't know about beauty. I'm sure Pike was into some weird shit. And once again, it belongs in a museum. It belongs in a museum. Wasn't that Indiana Jones? Quote, Indy, you know. And reinstate pre-existing statues. The National Park Service said in a statement pointing to President Trump's executive order on making the District of Columbia safe and beautiful. Is that really what he titled it? And the executive order on restoring truth and sanity to American history. Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton. And by the way, before you even say, if you're a newcomer, I don't have fucking TDS. Go watch my older shit. I used to be a Q-tard. I used to be on the Trump train. You know, I was never a conservative or a Republican, but I voted for the motherfucker when the election was stolen. I think he's a chomo, allegedly. The way he's handling this Epstein shit, yeah, it's starting to look that way. Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton. I wonder if she's related to Sherlock Holmes or Edward Norton. Sorry. Who represents Washington, D.C., said in a statement she would reintroduce a bill to permanently remove the statue. I have no problem with it, but I don't... Here's my thing. I have no problem with her removing the statue with a bill, but it's not because of racism or the Confederacy or the Civil War. My thing is, he's a Luciferian, 33rd degree Freemason piece of shit. And by the way, I have pulled up here, if we have time, Albert Pike's letter to Mazzini, where you can literally find the PDF online. We're going to get to that if we have time, like I said. We might have to make a whole episode on it. Who cares? The Illuminati plan for 3 world wars. This dude was a scumbag. You know? This dude was a fucking scumbag. And my thing is like, if you're into like LaVeyan Satanism, I have no problem with you. Or Satanic Temple, I have no problem with you. Those are actually the harmless Satanists. But when you get into like Order of Nine Angles, or the Finders Cult, or this dude's type of Luciferianism, then I have a problem with you when you're like planning world wars. And in the world wars that you write about in a letter to Mazzini, 2 of them come true and the third one's starting to look like it's going to come true. Like, you're a psycho. The decision to honor Albert Pike by reinstalling the Pike statue is as odd and indefensible as it is morally objectionable, Norton said. He resigned in disgrace after committing a war crime. I didn't know that, so we'll have to look into that. What war crime did he commit? We might do another episode on Albert Pike. Let's find out. I'll put that in my notebook. And dishonoring even his own Confederate military service. So basically, he was a scumbag even to the Confederates. The rebels, you know. South will rise again. Even those who want Confederate statues to remain standing would have to justify awarding Pike any honor, considering his history. So he was a scumbag even amongst the Confederates, his fellow Confederates. And he was a general, it said. So his own crew hated him. He was just a scumbag. I've worked for people like that. The statue of Albert Pike has long been a source of controversy before it came down. It was the only statue of a Confederate general in D.C., though the memorial itself does not mention his military service, and Pike is wearing civilian clothes. So I would say this is a good point right there. And someone else brought this up. Before I was going to cover this, someone else brought this up. It's not a fucking Civil War monument. It really isn't, because he's out of uniform in civilian clothes. He's holding a book. I would love to see what book he's holding. If you guys know, hit me up in the comments. I think this statue was Freemasons praising him as a Freemason. What does the term Mason mean? Someone who works with stone. My wife's last name, her maiden name was Stone. Not saying she's a Freemason, but I guarantee you were named after, like, what your trade was. So, like, her family were probably Masons. Not Freemasons, but Masons. I've met shoemakers around here in Kentucky. You hear that name a lot. Shoemaker, you know. Your family was shoemakers. There's a lot in your name, dude. That was not a Civil War statue. Was he a Confederate? Yes, but he was much more than that. He was a 33rd degree Grandmaster Freemason. So it's not even really a Confederate statue. Sorry. The statue of Albert Pike has been along sorts of, before it came down, though the memorial doesn't even mention his military service in the memorial. And Pike is wearing civilian clothes. Instead, the engraved words read, author, poet, scholar, soldier. So it does mention his military service. So this article is biased and apparently wrong. They just contradicted themselves right there. He was a jurist. I'm sorry, that's not a title. Like, my wife did jury duty. So now for the rest of her life, she could just be like, I'm a jurist. You know? Oh, I'm going to engrave it on her tombstone just to be a fucking dick. Yeah, she was a jurist, you know. Okay, you did, like, civil service, like, community service. Cool. A lot of people do. I do community service by picking up trash on the side of the road. Should I wear that as a badge of honor? Like, no. You shouldn't brag about things you do. Otherwise, you lose all the good karma. That's just me getting woo-woo, but he was an orator. I don't know what that means. Philanthropist. Okay, philanthropist. We know how much that word has been tossed around so much, dude. Bill Gates is a philanthropist. You know who else was a philanthropist? Jeffrey Epstein. We know how good those guys are. And a philosopher. Okay, I'll give you that. Because you were a 33rd degree Freemason, so you have to be into philosophy to be a fucking Mason, you know. The Freemasons dedicated it in 1901 in honor of his leadership. So, it's not a Civil War statue. It's not a Confederate statue. It's a Freemason statue. The Freemasons dedicated it in 1901 in honor of his leadership. This is the focus that we need to be focusing on. And anyone in the conspiracy community, we're not focusing on the whole left-right paradigm. I'm black, you're white, you know, racial, this, that. They want us divided, order out of chaos. Ordo chaos or something like that. Divide and conquer. United we stand, divided we fall. They want order out of chaos. They want us to be divided into this left-right paradigm. Two wings of the same goddamn bird. It's a Masonic statue. It never was a Confederate statue. And if you try to explain this to a fucking dumb blue-pilled motherfucker, they're never gonna fucking get it, man. They don't understand that this world is run by dark occultists. Pike was born in Boston, but settled later in Arkansas. That's where my dad was born, Little Rock. He joined the anti-Catholic and anti-immigration Know-Nothing Party. So he was anti-immigration and anti-Catholic. I'm not against immigration. I'm against illegal immigration. That I'm against. Anti-Catholic? Hell yeah, I'm anti-Catholic. Catholics fucking suck. That's like the biggest, I'd say probably the largest child trafficking network there is the Catholic Church. I mean, just go look at all the scandals. Like, I could literally, if I never really delved too much into the whole Catholic pedophilia, child trafficking shit, because I know where there is so much of it, and it's been going on for so long, it would not even be like its own series or playlist. You guys know how I section everything out into series or playlist? It would literally be an entire podcast. And I don't have time to create an entire podcast of how much pedophilia and child trafficking has been going on with the Catholic Church. Just saying. But he and other delegates walked out of their convention when the party wouldn't adopt a pro-slavery stance. So he was anti-slavery. Why did BLM destroy it then? Oh wait, that's right, because BLM used to be called BLM2. It's not the original movement. It got hijacked by two black lesbians who are cultural Marxists. Not even cultural Marxists. They're Marxists, man. They literally stated on their website in the fucking mission statement. You can't make this shit up. It got hijacked. Probably, and I guarantee you, it'll come out like 20 years from now. Kind of like the JFK files came out like, 50 years later. It'll come out by CIA, FOIA request or something. That, yeah, they were CIA agents. I guarantee it, dude. They're all scumbags. So, he didn't like it. I guess he was anti-slavery. Isn't that crazy? He became a Confederate general in 1861, working between the Confederacy and native tribes. So that's cool. Kinda, maybe. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that one, because I'm Native American. I'm Blackfoot and Kiowa. Histories of the KKK have identified him as a post-Civil War leader of the group. Okay, yeah, so he was... Wait a second. So he was... But he and other... So he wasn't pro-slavery, but he was a member of the KKK? Now you're breaking my fucking brain. He wasn't pro-slavery, but he was a member of the KKK. Am I missing something? You can read this. I've read it like 3 fucking times. What does that mean? So what... This is where I say order out of chaos. That's mind-boggling. So he wasn't pro-slavery, but he was a member of the KKK. Albert Pike, you are an interesting motherfucker, dude. Okay. The DC Consul tweeted in 2020 that members had been calling for its removal since 1992, which I don't blame them. On Juneteenth, 2020, protesters pulled down the statue with ropes and set it on fire. I was actually joking about it being Juneteenth, but I guess it actually did happen on Juneteenth. I'm sorry. You can't make this shit up. In response, Trump tweeted, "The DC police are not doing their job as they watch the statue being ripped down and burned. These people should be immediately arrested. A disgrace to our country." You know who should be immediately arrested? You, Mr. Orange Man. You. For covering up a child trafficking ring, Epstein. That's who should be arrested. You, sir. And I already told you, Bill Maher says new rule. TDS, we're not using that word anymore. I'm sorry. You all can say, newcomers, you got TDS, you got TDS. Bitch, I voted for the motherfucker. The second time he ran. And I used to be a Q-tard, so shut the fuck up. The Park Service says it's planning for the statue to be on its plinth in DC's Judiciary Square neighborhood, just blocks from National Mall by October. So that's the end of that article. Let's get into Albert Pike's letter to Mazzini. Alright, so we go deep, homeboy, in the words of Sam Tripoli. This is a PDF of Albert Pike's letter to Mazzini. The Illuminati planned for 3 world wars, August 15th, 1871. And I've always mentioned this letter in passing, but I've never covered it in an episode, so here you go. This is who Albert Pike is. This is his letter to Mazzini. The Illuminati planned for 3 world wars. The following is a letter, and by the way, this is written in August 15th, 1871, so keep that in mind when you're hearing this shit. The following is a letter that speculation claimed that Albert Pike wrote to Giuseppe Mazzini in 1871 regarding a conspiracy involving 3 world wars that were planned in an attempt to take over the world. The Pike letter to Giuseppe Mazzini on display in the British Museum Library until 1977. So this letter used to be displayed in the British Museum Library in London up until 77, and then they mysteriously took it down. But we have the PDF. And I believe it was William Cooper who I first heard this letter from on Hour of the Time back in the day. They probably took most of his broadcast off of YouTube. I've noticed like half of them are fucking gone. It sucks. Hopefully somebody out there has some cassette tapes. Okay. This letter has been claimed by many internet sites to reside in the British Library in London, which denies the letter exists. That's mysterious. So they moved it from the British Museum Library to the British Library in London, who denies that it even exists. So it's probably kind of like what we're dealing with in the United States with the fucking, what's that fucking shady ass museum that steals all the giant skeletons? Hit me up in the comments. You fucking know who I'm talking about. Starts with an S, I believe. They fucking blow, though. Giuseppe Mazzini was an Italian revolutionary leader of the mid-1800s, as well as the director of the Illuminati. So I guess he took over the Illuminati after Adam Weishaupt. And I'm guessing Albert Pike was an Illuminated Lodge member, 33rd degree Freemason, Grand Master, and he was illuminated, which means, if you don't know what that term means, like there's Mason lodges that are non-illuminated lodges, meaning they're not infiltrated by the Bavarian Illuminati, the real Illuminati. I'm from a Masonic family, so I know my shit. But I guarantee you, Albert Pike was an illuminated member. So, Albert Pike, he's a historical Masonic figure, 33rd degree Freemason, occultist, which I am. Occultist doesn't mean you're an evil piece of shit. It just means you study the occult and or practice the occult and or both. Grand Master and creator of the Southern jurisdiction of the Masonic Scottish Rite Order. By the way, if you join Freemasonry, join the Scottish Rite. Don't join the Blue Lodge. It's like a shitty version. If you want to do it right, do the Scottish Rite Order. So, following are apparently extracts from the letter showing the 3 world wars have been planned for many generations. The First World War must be brought about in order to permit the Illuminati, Bavarian, to overthrow the power of the Tsars in Russia, and of making that country a fortress of aesthetic communism. The divergences caused by the agents of the Illuminati between the British and Germanic empires will be used to foment this war. At the end of the war, communism will be built and used in order to destroy the other governments and in order to weaken the religions. So, right there, communist Russia. This gets into like Yuri Bezmenov. Go check out Yuri Bezmenov interviews. They infiltrate other countries, is what this says, and they have. Cultural Marxism is alive and well in America. People are fighting back, but they've already infiltrated. Second World War. Nazis. Must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences between the fascists and the political Zionists. This war must be brought about so that Nazism, by the way, this word Nazism didn't even exist yet when he wrote this. I do know this little fucking Easter egg. That word Nazism didn't even exist yet. So he already knew what they were going to call it. Just saying. Is destroyed, and the political Zionism be strong enough to institute a sovereign state of Israel and Palestine. What are we seeing now with Israel and Palestine? This is where the state of Israel came into play, and he was talking about this shit in the 1800s. During the second, if you all don't think this is planned, this should be a fucking wake-up call. During the Second World War, international communism must be strong enough in order to balance Christendom, which would be then restrained and held in check until the time when we would need it for final social cataclysm. So, this is the Third World War. This is the little sneak peek, and we're going to finish it off here. The Third World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences caused by the agent of the Illuminati between the political Zionists. We're seeing a lot of Zionism right now with Israel and Palestine. Just saying, you got Ben Shapiro out there acting like a fucking douche. Between the political Zionists and the leaders of the Islamic world. Pro-Palestine people, pro-Islam, you know. And then you have the Islamic infiltration of nations as far as like countries, as far as like the UK. England has fallen. They're trying to do that shit here. The war must be conducted in such a way that Islam, the Muslim Arabic world, and political Zionism, the state of Israel, mutually destroy each other. I ain't gonna lie, I would kind of love to see that. There's sometimes I get so tired of this shit, I'm like, can we just let them blow each other up? Sorry. Dark thoughts. Meanwhile, the other nations, once more divided on the issue, will be, which we are, highly, right now, must be constrained to fight to the point of complete physical, moral, spiritual, and economical exhaustion. Which, by the way, we are going through so much economical exhaustion. It's getting bad. Spiritual? No, I'm white-pilled. Moral? No, I will never lose my morals. Physical? I'm getting older. I ain't gonna lie. They're getting me on the physical point. I'm actually losing teeth, and I haven't had health insurance in forever, so they're kind of getting me there. We shall unleash the nihilist and the atheist, and we shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm which in all its horror will show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism, which you guys know me. I've never converted to complete atheism. If you look at my super old podcast episodes back when I was agnostic, I used to be an agnostic, but I never was able to step over that line and say that God doesn't exist. Origin of savagery, and the most bloody turmoil. Then everywhere the citizens obliged to defend themselves against the world's minority of revolutionaries will exterminate those destroyers of civilization, and the multitude disillusioned with Christianity. Of course, I think that all Christianity is disillusionment. Sorry, I kind of agree with Pike on that one. Whose deistic spirits will, from that moment, be without compass or direction, anxious for an ideal, but without knowing where to render its adoration, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, brought finally out in public view. This manifestation will result from the general reactionary movement which will follow the destruction of Christianity. Kind of cool with that one. I've wanted Christianity to be destroyed for so fucking long as someone who's grown up in Christian religious abuse. Kind of cool with that one, sorry. And atheism, both conquered and exterminated at the same time. But that doesn't mean I want like a Luciferian government and one world order. Just saying. I'm an occultist. And as an occultist, I like spiritualism. I like shamanism. I like witchcraft. It might surprise you. I don't worship the devil, but I don't know. They're rebuilding the Albert Pike statue, and there's his letter to Mazzini. Figured I'd report on it. God bless. Y'all have a good day, and let me know what you think.